I now have the pleasure of welcoming Rabbi Mendel Kaplan, who's here to provide some spiritual enhancement for us. Good morning, Rabbi Kaplan. How are you today?
Good morning, Martin. I'm fine, Baruch Hashem, and delighted to be on air with you. You know, over the course of the last week, we talked about Purim, and we talked about the observance of Purim, 4 specific mitzvahs, the spirit of the day, and the kinds of things that we were supposed to try and do in order to utilize that extraordinary activity in the fullest sense. Well, Purim is past. And now we look towards the next holiday, which is called Pesach. And if I may suggest, Martin, what I'd like to do over the course of the next couple of weeks is, rather than talk about the Torah portion, albeit an important thing to do, I'd like to focus on the holiday called Pesach or Passover. And that's because we have a tradition that goes back nearly 2,000 years. This is documented in the Gemara, in Masechet Pesachim, on Daf Vav, on page 6, and it's also brought down in the Code of Jewish Law. In fact, the Shulchan Aruch, that was authored by the Alter Rebbe, opens, the laws of Pesach open with the words, Chachamim Harishonim Tiknu, the earliest sages established, and we know this refers to the Braisa, the sages from the time of the Mishnah, Sheyitchilu Hadarshanim Lidrosh Berabim, that those who are wont to expound on halacha and on Torah now begin to do so publicly for 30 days before the holiday called Pesach. That means from Purim onward, the focus is on the laws that govern the holiday called Pesach. And the reason, says the Alter Rebbe, quoting our sages, is because Kol Echad V'Echad Hador Be'eretz Yisrael, because everybody living in the land of Israel was going to have to travel to Yerushalayim to bring special offerings. There are many rules and regulations that govern the offerings, and the only way people would be properly prepared is if they would be educated and literate. So it was the job of he who would teach to gather their disciples and to teach. Well, you might say this is in the time of the Beit HaMikdash. What does that have to do with us? We aren't in a position to learn about the laws of Korbanot, in part because we haven't brought Korbanot in so many years, and we might not have the coming of Mashiach or a Beit HaMikdash in time for Pesach this year. We hope we will, but we don't know for sure. Well, the Alter Rebbe goes on in Shulchan Aruch and Seif Beis in the second subsection to say, V'takana zo lo nitbatla mi Yisrael. This injunction did not fade away, even after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Rather, what happened was that Kol Chacham, every wise person who was learned in Torah, would gather their disciples, and they would teach them the laws of the upcoming holiday of Pesach. And one might say that's very nice. That works for people who are gathered to study Torah. But what about the general populace? So Shulchan Aruch says the general populace, Hamoin Am, for them there would be a very, very detail-oriented lecture, which would also be inspirational. That would happen on the Shabbat prior to Pesach, as long as it didn't fall on Erev Shabbat, which incidentally it does fall this year. Okay, so here's the pragmatic takeaway. Badorot Halalu, says the Alter Rebbe, in our day and age when there are many books printed, and we could perhaps augment this and add when there are so many classes available online. On my YouTube channel alone, there are nearly 100 classes and lectures on the Haggadah and the laws of Pesach, and I encourage everybody to utilize those classes. They're available at no cost, and all you need to do is put a pair of AirPods in and listen, and you can learn. So he says, in these generations, it is the obligation of every individual, because everything is already printed, it's found in the books. Mitzvah akol echad v'echad shel yilmid halachot haregel. It is a mitzvah, it is incumbent, an obligation for everybody to spend time over the next 30 days learning these halachot. Now, here's the thing. It is true that all of this is available. It is also true that thanks to Chin Radio and our daily conversations, we have Hamon Am, we have the general populace listening on a daily basis. Surely the obligation is upon us, and it behooves us to utilize this time to share words of inspiration and pragmatic instruction so that people will know how to observe the holiday of Pesach properly. Very interestingly, in the end of chapter 436 of the Shulchan Aruch, the last words in Siman Sif Chav Gimel of the Alter Rebbe are Kol Shloshim Yom Lefnei Pesach, all 30 days prior to the advance or arrival of Pesach. Tzarech lizoir ula'ayin b'chol davar shaisa. You have to be mindful, and you have to be thinking as you do whatever it is you might be doing. You have to think about, will chametz be left behind? Will this provide problems for my observance of Pesach? And so we are very much in the Passover swing of things. The Meiri, the great medieval sage who wrote commentary on almost the entire Talmud, he said it is worthy and appropriate for each of us to work on and to dedicate time during the course of this month for tzorchei hachag, for the needs of Pesach. And I want to make the following suggestion to all of our listeners. The Seder nights are less than a month away. You may be making your own plans. What about those who don't have family or people who don't have friends to invite them? Now is the time to think about others. Now is the time to do our part to prepare so that we will be able to observe Pesach properly and that those around us will be able to observe Pesach properly as well. So my commitment, bli neder, my soft commitment, Martin, is that over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try to share a vignette, one or two thoughts about the laws of Pesach, about the inspiration of Pesach, and about like a practical takeaway, so that by the time Pesach arrives, all of us will be ready. And I hope that as we will prepare to be ready for Pesach, that we will all merit a Chag Kasher V'Sameach. And you know, it is already customary from Purim onward to wish people a happy and a kosher Pesach. And the simple reason that we wish people a happy and a kosher Pesach, it's so onerous to make sure that even the tiniest morsel of chametz doesn't somehow get mixed into our food, or that maybe we inadvertently don't overlook some chametz. We need to have like a merit, a zechut, a blessing from on high. So this is our blessing to each other. We bless each other with the privilege of having a Pesach that is both happy as well as suitable, as kosher, the kind of Passover, the kind of special days that necessarily infuse the entire year that follows with added spirituality, faith, fortitude, and a sense of enthusiasm and vivacity for our Yiddishkeit. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us to prepare properly. And I will end with the hope and the prayer that we will soon begin to learn the laws of the Korbanot, because hopefully Mashiach will be here long before Pesach, and we will in fact merit to bring a Korban Pesach this year. May this all be b'mheira u'b'yameinu, speedily and in our days. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Kaplan. And I just want to mention to you that I sold my chametz this morning, so that's out of the way right now. Okay, let's listen to a little bit of.
I'm going to talk about selling chametz, but Martin is way ahead of everybody else. Thanks for joining. Have a beautiful day.